Eric with Different Strings Productions here, helping you build a better band. Today we're going to give you a couple techniques that you can make really clear vocals on your recordings. Hey, thanks for tuning in. As always, like and subscribe. It helps build the channel, and more people can find us, and then you too can help build better bands. All right, I'm going to give you two techniques to get better, clearer vocals in your recording mix. I had a conversation with a friend of mine. He does a similar thing, and I have a slight nuance to it, and I thought I would just go ahead and capture that and put it out there for all. These tracks that I'm working with today came from a mix competition. This is recorded in 2001, and the competition is going on now. And it's by a international recording artist, Naji Soul. He's out of Morocco, and the song is called Kuli Naija. So let's get into it. I've got two techniques that I'm going to go over. Number one, the first technique is to create yourself a group that has all of the instruments in it. So a couple things that buys you here. Number one, you can create stubs pretty quickly, because now if you solo the instruments, right, now you've got a stub for instruments only, or you could mute it and have a stub for vocals only. Convenient. But here's the real trick, and this is not secret. This is well-known process. A lot of people do this. In this group, I sidechain my EQ. Now I'm using Neutron. You can use any EQ that you want to use, as long as it has the ability to take an input from a sidechain. And in this case, with Neutron from Isotope, you go to this gear here and you add your sidechain sources. You can see here that that is coming in from the vocal piece, and there's actually two vocal pieces. There's a second vocal piece for the bridge. So those two are both triggering this EQ. A lot of people do this. Now, what they'll typically do, though, is they'll not take the entire instrument track. They'll take just the track that they're interested in, keyboards, guitar, whatever that one's competing with the vocals. Now, I do it a little different, and that's the purpose of this little education here, is I do it with the whole instrument track, and the theory being there that if there was something there that wasn't competing, if you had a bass, for example, that you weren't going to need to sidechain that EQ, well, it's not competing anyway, so the sidechain's not really going to affect it. And so anything else that would be affected. Now, this is a technique that you wouldn't do if you wanted it to compete. I don't know why you would, but maybe there's an instance where you'd have to do that. The other nuance that I do here is I go by... a lot of people pick the frequency they think is competing, and they'll do some masking, and they'll look at that. What I do is I find the key that they're singing in. In this case, he's in F sharp 6, which puts you at 1.4 kilohertz, 1.466, right? So I dial that in. I've got a band shelf here to just kind of carve out that entire area. And as you see, as he's singing, it pulls down that EQ at that point, right? So while he's singing, that EQ is being carved out for his vocals in the key that he's singing in. Now, the next thing I do is, there's a little clipping there, I'll have to fix that. Next thing I do is the parallel compression channel. A lot of times called the back channel or the rear compression channel. Again, nothing special here. I'm not making anything up. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. So what you do here, and this glues the whole mix together in general. This is why you would typically do that. You would do this to glue your mix together. And so what you do is you take everything but the drums and the bass, and you send this to the effect channel. So I created effect channel. I do the sends, FX back compressor to this guy. And in this case, I'm just using an SSL compressor. And this is in parallel. Like, I can turn this effect up and down and it's not going to affect it. But here's the difference. For settings, typically you'd put 2-to-1 attack. 2-to-1 ratio, and then the attack is slow as possible. And that allows for the high ends to get through without them getting clamped on. So look, if you clamp them down too hard, it starts to lose that high end fidelity. So I let it hit about 2 dB, and you can hear it with it more, and none, right? And it just kind of glues that whole mix together. But here's the trick that I do with that. On all of the instruments that I'm sending to that back channel, I set the compressor send at like -10, right? But the vocals I send at a little half than that, maybe -5, -7. In this case, I was dialing it in with my ear, and I ended up at 5.3 and 4.6. And so what that does is, while the vocalist is singing, it hits that compressor harder, and it makes that voice a little clearer, and it kind of backs down the instrumentation. So the instrumentation isn't driving the compressor as much as the vocalist is driving that. And again, salt to taste. You can dial it in a little more or a little less on the effect itself, and you can have it hit that compressor a little harder or a little less harder, or equal. You can have them all at -10 and feeding the compressor the same with the vocals. But I like to give that vocals just a little extra bit of push on that compressor, that it kind of pushes down the rest of the instrumentation and makes that vocal just kind of stand out. That's pretty much it. Now, last but not least, I don't always do this, but sometimes on the vocal track, I will also kind of bump that same frequency that we were cutting in the EQ, and that depends on the voice, it depends on the genre, but it can make it come really sharp through to your ears, and maybe too sharp, right? And in which case you might have to actually add a de-esser. In that case, I had to add a little bit of de-esser because it was hitting that sibilance just a tad hard. All right, that is what I got. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, feel free to put them down in the comments. Again, subscribe and like to the channel. The more we get on the channel, the more people we help. So, Eric again with Different Strings Productions, helping you build a better band. We'll talk to you later.
We did this at Different Strings Productions.